Hey there, welcome to the Emotional Revolution podcast. I'm Kayla Birch, and I'm here to help you break free from those emotional patterns that keep holding you back so you can step into alignment, reclaim your confidence, and create the life and business you've been dreaming of. So let's get started and begin your journey to emotional freedom. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Emotional Revolution podcast. I'm Kayla Birch, and I'm so excited to introduce you to our guest today, Erin Darden, who is an emotional intelligence and relationship coach. We are in for a treat today as we go through so many different layers of growth and healing and business and all the different things that it takes to really show up authentically in your business. I'm so excited to have you here, Erin. Tell us a little bit more about you and what you do.
Yeah, so I am Erin by trade. I'm an attorney. I realized pretty quickly that that wasn't why I was created. And so I came upon coaching, emotional intelligence coaching specifically. I'm sure we'll get into that story a little bit later. And so what that means is emotional intelligence is your ability to recognize, identify, understand, and manage your emotions, being aware of how they affect those around you, your partner specifically. Understanding your partner and using all of this information to move the relationship forward. And so when it comes to emotional intelligence and romantic relationships, it has a lot to do with how you communicate with each other, how you resolve conflict, and how you connect with one another. And so what I do is I use my training as an attorney, right? The conflict resolution skills I got from that, plus my own personal journey with relationships and communication, and my training as a coach and emotional intelligence. And I use all of that to help women and their partners improve their communication, their conflict resolution, and their connection with their partner.
Yeah, so that's amazing. That's obviously very important work and something that is a skill that we're not taught often. So I think it's a really powerful way to present that. And what led you to that? So you talked about emotional intelligence coaching. What led you to say yes to that, especially as you are already established as a lawyer?
Yeah. So like I said, I knew pretty quickly that being an attorney wasn't going to be me for the rest of my life. And at the moment, I went on a personal journey, deep search. I did a fast, trying to figure out why was I created, right? I knew being an attorney wasn't it for me. And so I said, well, why was I created? And so I had to do really this deep soul search and figure out why I was created. And so there's a lot that I did in that journey. And I had a friend that said to me, well, what if the fact that people always come to you for help has something to do with your purpose? And before that moment, I had never thought about it, right? People have always asked me for help my whole life, which I never understood because a lot of times I'm just making an educated guess, or I don't give advice, right? I put it back on them to help them figure it out for themselves. And so what I realized is that what I was actually doing when I posed the question back to them, or I asked the right questions to help people figure it out for themselves, that essentially is coaching. Right. And so I figured out that coaching is probably my purpose. But then what type of coach, right? There's so many types of coaches out here. How did I get to emotional intelligence? And I got to emotional intelligence really from my own personal journey. I was in a coaching certification. At the same time, I was still practicing law. And I had a work relationship that was really a pain. I dreaded to see the supervisor coming. I felt unheard. I felt like he never listened to me. Everything I did was wrong. And so it was really a sore spot for me. Not too many things of that job I disliked, but this one relationship caused me a lot of frustration and grief. Like I would cry every single time he would leave my office. And so at the same time, I was in my coaching certification and we were on the part of the program about emotional intelligence. And they were talking about how it works in the workplace and how it can fit workplace relationships. And so I said, well, let me see if it will work with this relationship. And it did. Right. I was able to take the time to understand what I was feeling. Like, why did I cry every time he would leave my office? Right. I figured out that it's because I felt like maybe he thought I was incompetent, which is a scary thought as a baby attorney. Right. But what I didn't think about is I never took the time to think about things from his perspective. Right. And so empathy is one of the big components of emotional intelligence. And so once I started to see things from his perspective, it's not that he thought I was incompetent. He liked to mentor. He liked to help young attorneys. Right. And so once I understood that, okay, so it's not that I'm incompetent. He's just trying to be helpful. And so now that I know that he's trying to be helpful and that this isn't a personal attack on my character, right? It let me know how to navigate this. And so I said, well, if emotional intelligence can work in this relationship over here, what about my personal relationships? And I feel like, again, it worked over here. You usually hear people talk about emotional intelligence in the workplace, but I personally believe that our romantic relationships have a bigger impact on our quality of life.
Mm-hmm.
And so we are quick to leave a job, or we are quicker to leave a job that is no longer serving us, or we feel disrespected, or, we don't like the boss, but we're not so quick to leave those romantic relationships that are no longer serving us.
Yeah.
And so I feel like, again, it's my purpose right now to help people understand the benefits of emotional intelligence and building and maintaining healthy romantic relationships. Right. Communication is the big part of relationships, right? 65% of divorces happen because of a communication issue, not a lack of love. So it's not that people don't love each other. It's that they can't figure out how to talk to each other. And
Yeah.
so I realized that I can use the same skill set that I used as an attorney, right? And that I had to use for myself, and help people, one, become better individual people, and then secondly, a better partner, and learn how to coexist with their partner.
Absolutely. So I want to go back to that space of when you were going into that self-discovery phase, because that's a really big journey that we go on of like, what are we doing? Like, what is the point? Why am I here? I've spent so much time, money, effort in this area, and it's just not adding up or what I want. So what was that journey like for you? What were some of the things that you had to do and learn for yourself then?
Mhm. Yeah. So I mentioned that, career wise, I was not satisfied, but that was just a small part of it. I had also moved to a new area, so I was alone. I was lonely. I wasn't making as much money as a new attorney, so financially, I was, struggling a bit to live in the DC area. Um, Spiritually, I was just not connected as connected to God as I know that I should have been. But then the cherry on top is the guy I was dating at the time said, "This isn't what I want anymore." So literally every single area of my life was in shambles. I cried every day I had to go to work. I'm lonely, right? I'm in a new city. I don't really know anybody. Everybody at work is married, so it's kind of weird to like hang out with them. Financially, I wasn't where I wanted to be, or to really be comfortable and go out and, do things. So literally every single area of my life was in shambles. And I would ask God, like, why me? Why is this happening to me? This is crazy. This is not what I thought my life would look like at almost 30, right? I thought I was going to be married to my best friend with kids, a high paid attorney, happy, successful. I was none of those things. None of them. And so I'm like, this is not what I thought my life was going to look like at this point. And I think that was a hard pill to swallow. And I stayed there for a minute, right? If I could be honest, I was actually diagnosed with clinical depression and anxiety and ADD. All this was happening at once, and it was a lot for me. And honestly, I was probably depressed for years. Like, it took me some time to get out of this, and then I made a decision that this is not the life that I want to live. And when I started to question, what do I do from here? Where do I go? I know that this life is not what I want to live. So how do I get to what I do want to live? And I had to start asking myself the tough questions, right? Why did I feel like I needed to be married by a certain age? Why did I feel like I needed a husband to buy a house or to reach some other financial goals, right? I just had to start asking myself why, right? I say I want to be married, but am I the person that my ideal person is attracted to? And the answer, if I'm being honest, was no.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that that's not something easy to look yourself in the mirror and realize that you are the reason that you are not where you want to be. Right. Now,
Yeah.
sometimes there are some external factors, but for the most part, it's you. Right. And I feel like there are at different moments of my life, like quotes or things that I've heard that kind of really stuck with me. So, like, at that moment, it was the difference between who you are and who you want to be is what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, it's up to me. This is not about what's happening to me. I can change this. And so once I started to, ask questions and, listening to different things, reading different books. And I actually read or was listening to a TD Jakes sermon. And he said, like, when you are depending on somebody to give you something that you don't have, right, you're at their mercy.
Hmm.
And that's when a light bulb hit, right? I had been waiting for a partner to make me happy. And so when I heard him say that, so you just not going to be happy until you're married? And that's just sounded crazy to me. And so like all of these different things at different moments, it just started to make me rethink everything about life, right? My
Yeah.
ideologies. Like some of the stuff I made up. Like when I really sat down and thought about like, well, where did this come from? And is this true for me? I realized that I had made it up.
Yeah.
Right. And so in this self-discovery, I had to ask myself, Erin, what do you like? Right. I felt bad that I did not enjoy being an attorney. I felt bad about it. I felt ungrateful. Right. Here I am. Being an attorney is one of these professions that, right, is admirable. You tell people you're an attorney, oh, I wanted to go to law school. Right. And here I am. And I was miserable.
Yeah.
And I truly felt bad about it. I truly felt ungrateful about it. Right. People would kill for the job that I got straight out of law school. And I'm here crying every day. And so in this self-discovery, I had to really be honest with myself. What is healthy for me and what's not healthy for me? Right? What do I like? What do I need? Forget what society has said. Forget what other people have said my life should look like. Forget what I thought my life should look like and what I should be doing. And I really had to spend that time with myself and figure out, what do I want now at this age, right? Because you come up with this idea of what your life is going to look like as a child. But now that you have experienced life, you have grown through some things, you've gone through some things, what you're allowed to change your mind. Right. And so I really had to take that time to spend time with myself, get to know me to my core. Like I said, what I like, what I don't like, forget what other people said, forget other people's expectations, forget my own expectations. Right. And do what I wanted to do. And I think one of the greatest things about that is it empowered me. It let me know that I'm in control of me. And that has been like one of the staple lessons that has carried me like through life, through relationships, going from placing blame on other people, on other things, or I'm this way because my job is stressful, or I'm sad because he doesn't want to be with me. By taking accountability, right? I tell people all the time, you got to take accountability for the part that you have played, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's some things that I probably could have done differently, but by recognizing that I am the one in control, I can only control me. And that has made my life a lot easier, recognizing what I can control and what I can't. And so I focus on what I can.
Yeah, absolutely. And, really all the things that I hear is what I like to refer to a lot as radical responsibility, because that's when we step in, we've told ourselves the truth. We see these things really clearly, and we have to finally step into this high level of responsibility for it. We have to be radically responsible for what we see, because that's what a lot of people are scared of. So a lot of times we see a lot of these things you're talking about, but we still, like you said, go to blame, and it's everyone else's fault. We can't be happy because this person did this, or this is here, I have this circumstance, and everything always falls into the external world instead of that ownership. And so until we take that responsibility, which is really hard, and it's also, that's the really vulnerable state. And I think that's where a lot of people miss this step. And that's where they stay stuck in those cycles. So now they have a lot of awareness about what they need to change because they've told themselves the truth, but they're not taking responsibility for it. So I'm curious to know, what was that like for you to go from like the truth telling to the responsibility part of it? Because that really requires a different level of vulnerability.
So I would say it's not easy, right? I think before you can even get to the responsibility part of it, you have to change the way you think and feel. A lot of the times when people don't want to take accountability, they feel bad about what they've done. They feel bad about this situation, or they are judging, or they're criticizing the situation, the first thing I had to do was accept what is.
Mhm.
It is what it is. There is no need to beat myself up about it. There is no need to judge myself over it, right? I might not have made the best decisions every step of the way, but I made the decision. Where do I go from here? And so being accepting of what is, I think that is the first step. Stop judging what has happened. Stop being so critical. Stop beating yourself up. It is what it is. And I think once I was able to own that and accept that, it also helps because then nobody else can make you feel bad for it. Look, I get it. I'm not saying that it was right. I accept that I've done this, but this is what it is. And I'm not going to allow anybody else to make me feel bad. Like sometimes we carry the weight of other people, or we are scared about what somebody else is going to say. I don't care what anybody else says. I care about what I say and how I think about it. Right. And so I think accepting is the first piece of it. Whatever happened has happened. Whatever has not happened has not happened. Where do we go from here? And then I think once it's where do we go from here, it's really up to me. I'm either going to do it or I'm not, right? I am more of I have to talk to myself very directly. Are you going to do it or not? It's how I talk to me, right? I don't talk to everybody else like that. Everybody has different communication styles. But I know for me, I got to be, what are you doing? You going to do it or you not? I was actually just talking to a friend this morning about, all of the things that we have on our table. And she was like, well, she's not going to complain. I said, I complain all the time. But then I have to tell myself, pick my hard. Where I am, there's things about this that's hard. But if I'm not here, I can be over here, and that's going to be hard too. There's always going to be a hard, more than likely. You got to pick your hard.
Yeah.
And once you make your mind up, it's up to you, right? I don't work with everybody. I'm not willing. You have to really be willing to do the work. If you are going to come and, oh, well, I don't know, and make excuses and not be honest with yourself, I don't want to work with you. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but you have to want it.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I feel like a lot of people don't because they like to stay at that dysfunction is comfortable.
It's so comfortable. It's so familiar. It's so familiar. And it's so hard for us to get out of that familiar zone, that discomfort and the things that we say that, we're so tired of living into. It's so familiar to our bodies and to our brains that it's so difficult to step out into something else. And it's so hard to break those conditioned beliefs that we have, the beliefs that we've built about ourselves that are true or not true. Yep. And even oftentimes when we're aware of them, we don't understand why we keep staying in the cycle because we're like, it's not serving me in the way that I want. Yep. And I always like to go into a different direction with that and talk about the payoff, like what you actually gain from it in those moments, because there's always something in those moments that we're getting by staying stuck in those same cycles and stories. Yep. But the big thing here is that you were able to, are you still practicing law at all? Are you an attorney now?
So I do it on the side. I'm actually, like I said, talk about changing mind. I actually want to go back.
Okay, cool. So let's talk about that because I think that's a really powerful thing. So this is where a lot of people come. And I think a lot of people listening are like, yes, I've figured out what my purpose is right now, what I think my purpose is, right? That's the thing too, is that our purpose is always changing. Yes. It's like in the way we deliver the purpose changes, right? So oftentimes if you're meant to help others and that's what you are naturally good at, the vehicle in which that purpose gets delivered changes a lot of times in your life. And that's where we have to accept that. And so what was that like for you when you had that moment of just awareness? You're going through your life coaching course, you're doing all of that. What was that pivot like, or that transition to now make that full time and attorney on the side? What was that like?
I was so miserable at work. Right. I had kind of cleaned up every other area, right? Finances were good. I was back in church, so spiritually was good. I had surrounded myself with people. So I had a community here. So I was no longer lonely. Literally the last piece was this career piece. And I was just so miserable. I don't recommend anybody do what I do. I had been crying for days, doing the same work. At this point, I've been doing the same work for 4 or 5 years. Nothing is new at this point. I can probably do it with my eyes closed. Why are you still crying, girl? Literally, it was during COVID, so I was sitting downstairs at the kitchen table, and I just was crying profusely for days. And I'm like, okay, right? And so what I realized is that emotions are messengers. Often we try to ignore our emotions or hide them or stifle them. You shouldn't, right? Your emotions are trying to tell you something, right? They are there to tell you, hey, something's going on that we do not like. Either a boundary has been crossed or something has happened to make you sad. Your emotions are trying to tell you something, right? And being emotionally intelligent is knowing what they're trying to tell you. And at that point, right, it's been 4 years. I could do the job, right? The job itself is not as stressful sometimes, but I got it down packed now, right? I'm over the learning curve. I can do this. Why are you still so upset? And it just got to a point where I quit. I do not recommend anybody do this. And so before I quit, I talked to my therapist. I talked to my psychiatrist. I did not really have a plan because I had actually planned on staying longer than I was there. So yeah, don't necessarily listen to your emotions. Don't just up and quit like I did, because that was a bit crazy. So listening to my emotions, I just felt like that was not the place for me, at least at that time. Mm-hmm. Right. And so I quit with no real plan. Again, I do not recommend it. Right. But it was something that I feel like I needed to do for me, right? Something that my emotions and God was telling me, right? I'm also spiritual or religious. And so that is something that I figured that I needed to do. And then I got out here and then realized that being an entrepreneur might be harder, right? You got to pick your heart. So here I was as an attorney, stressed out. I quit, and now the pressure of you eat what you kill. You don't know when the next check is coming, and I had just bought a house. Talk about picking your heart.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of things that I've had to learn. Right. I thought quitting was going to be the answer. I stopped taking my medications. I'm healthy. I'm not depressed anymore. All of my problems are gone. And that was not the case.
Right. Because, once again, now it's putting all of your happiness into an external factor. And so then what did you do? Right. So you realized that, okay, quitting was a part of the puzzle, right? As it always is. The things are always parts of the puzzles, but they're not the solution, because we're the solution. So how did you come back to that awareness that you were the solution and that you were holding your own happiness and your success, honestly?
Yep. So I've been doing this for about 4 years full time now. I had to learn more about me.
Yeah.
Right. I thought I had it down pat, right? I'm going to bet on me. But then once I got into this, I realized there was a lot of things that I still did not understand about myself. There were a lot of triggers that I still was not aware of, right? Until you're in that situation, you don't always know. And so I started to see some similarities, or I started to see okay, why is this different than I thought? I was going to quit and be happy and be fine. And it wasn't, right? I learned that the pressure of not knowing when your next check is coming doesn't really work for me. It could work for other people, right? But some of these things you're not going to know until you're in the situation. But again, a lot of self-reflecting, right? When I am laying in the bed and I'm like, God, I'm tired. Well, what is it that you're tired of specifically? What can you do to make this better? Like, what is it that you need? And so I realized that some type of consistent income is going to help me feel better. Also, I want to be able to show up, coach, do podcasts, do my own podcast, and not have to worry about the admin stuff. Mm-hmm. And so I also realized I can't do this by myself, even though I want to, for whatever reason. I don't know who told me that I could do it all by myself. But, right, again, I had to really pay attention to myself. I had to realize again that I was scared. There were parts of this that I was scared about. I was scared to put myself out there as a coach, right? I'm an attorney. Who's going to listen to me as a relationship coach? I'm also not married, right? So there was a lot of things internally that I had to work on, right? As an attorney, I was confident. I knew what I was doing, but now I'm in this space where I don't know how to be an entrepreneur. I mean, my dad was an entrepreneur his whole life, but again, it was different, right? Especially when you are offering a service that people don't realize that they need. People don't recognize that they're not a healthy partner. People don't recognize that the way that they talk to their partner is not conducive to the type of relationship that they say that they want. And so it really took, again, a lot of self-reflecting and really having the difficult conversations with myself and realizing that there are people out here that are doing it. There's something that I'm missing. And so I recognize my strengths. I recognize what my weaknesses are. And I am still actively working on building around the weaknesses, the things that I don't do well. Right? I can't do it all. And I have to be okay with that. I have to trust that somebody else can come in and help me. And again, knowing me, knowing my strengths, knowing my weakness, being self-aware. And again, deciding, is this something that you're really going to do? If so, you have to build the vehicle to be successful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that there's a big point here when we talk about this. So my work is based around triggers. That's what my work is based around. I have a method that's called the TRM, the trigger response method. So literally based around from your trigger to your response and then everything that's made up in between there, because it is one of the biggest things that stops us in life in general, in relationships, in our everyday life, but really, really, really strongly in our business. Mm-hmm. And so our business growth gets stopped and our momentum slows down immediately when that trigger comes up and we fall into old conditioned patterns and habits and beliefs. They just flood us and they stop us and they push us back, which is why I feel so strongly about this podcast in and of itself, because we talk about these triggers to all these different people out there who are building their businesses and how they work through it. Because I also like to say, same shit, different package. Right. That's exactly like what we talk about here. It's like everyone's dealing with the same things. It's just being presented in a different package. Mm-hmm. And then for you in your individual life, you're still dealing with the same things. It's just being presented in a different package. And so I always love to say your business is your biggest mirror into yourself. It's the biggest mirror into yourself. And so I've heard so many different ways where you keep bringing yourself back to that. Like, okay, I saw this, I worked through it. I saw this, I worked through it. I saw this and I worked through it. But I really want you to share some different ways that you did it. So you were honest with yourself about it. You took mm-hmm. responsibility. And those two things are key, important. What happened? Did you ever have times where you didn't follow through, or that you felt like you were quit and like you felt like this isn't enough, or I'm not doing enough and it was just too much? What did you do in those moments? How did you work through that?
Oh, absolutely. So you talked about also having things going on in your personal life. So my parents are also sick. So my dad has been sick for 4 years. He had a stroke at Christmas in 2020, like while we were sitting at the table. So he's been sick for 4 years. And then my mom got sick the end of middle of last year. And so now I'm also having to be a caregiver. Right. And so that really threw a monkey wrench in everything. And there were lots of days where I don't have it. I do not have anything left to give to my business. And then I felt bad because I feel like that's my purpose and that's what I'm supposed to be doing. But by the time I'm done being a caregiver and still trying to work, I just didn't have it. And so I would feel bad. There were times where I would get overwhelmed. I quit. I'm not doing this right now. So probably this year, I probably quit between 1 to 2 times between last year and this year. Mm-hmm. Right. And when I say I quit, it's not like I completely quit, is I need a break.
Yeah.
And I allowed myself to take a break. It was supposed to be for longer than they actually were because I would get back into it. But what I would do is I would give myself a break, meaning I would not put pressure on myself to bring in new clients or to create a new product, or to post on social media, because that is a whole job in and of itself, right? Mm-hmm. I would allow myself to just be, right? I would give myself some time not to think about the business, not to post, not to worry about bringing in money, any of those things. And then when I was ready or when I had the capacity, I would start to think about, okay, what are my goals? What do I really need at the moment? Do I need more brand awareness? Do I need to bring in more clients? Like, what is the thing? Do I need to work on my story and how I position myself? Or is there something about, instead of trying to help individual people, should I be partnering with, other companies? Like, just figuring out what I needed to be focusing on. And then I would take the time and think about what I've already done, what did work, what did not work. I would look at other people, what seems to be working for them, have conversations if I could. Okay. And I would just try to pick one thing. What's one thing I can do to move the needle forward? Right. I have a problem of my therapist helped me realize I don't write to-do lists. I write wish lists every day. Right. So my to-do list every day is not reasonable. And so when I'm in those moments where I'm overwhelmed and I've taken a step back, I just tell myself one thing. What is one thing I am going to work? Even if I sit down and I do a brain dump and I write everything out that I want to do and all of that, I still only allow myself one thing to work on.
Yeah.
And I work on that one thing until, I'm able to move on, or I get overwhelmed again and I got to go back to the drawing board.
Yeah. So I'm curious to know about the overwhelm part, because, this is driven from a lot of perfectionism, and we want to present ourselves perfect. We want everything to go a certain way. And I'm just curious to know, we get to these points and we feel overwhelmed, and then we stop, and then we quit, and we say, I can't do this, or something needs to change. And then we give ourselves that space, and then we find an answer within that. We get more clear on ourselves and we move on, and then it happens again. But I'm curious to know, have you explored what leads to your perfection overwhelm? Like, what leads to the overwhelm for you to begin with, for you to get to that point of quit? What leads to that for you?
Yeah. So I don't know if it's perfectionism for me. I am a recovering perfectionist. So I've kind of gotten over that. For me, I think I mentioned earlier, right, that I have also been diagnosed with ADD. So for me, it is more the ADD, or the ADHD, where I have this idea. I'm the visionary. I'm the creative. I always have a new idea.
Yeah.
I have an idea and I want to execute on it. Maybe I will execute. Maybe I do it, halfway. But then I get a new idea, and now I'm going to jump over here. And so now, before I know it, right, I am trying to run my podcast and get guests and edit and everything. Again, it's just me. So not only am I sitting down to have the conversations, but I also have to edit. I also have to post. I also have to, do all of the things, and then have the content for social media. Make sure you post it every day. And then, okay, well, maybe I don't want to do just the podcast. I need to do social media and YouTube as well. But then I also want to do one-on-one clients, but maybe I should do workshops, or maybe I should do group. Like, this is how my brain works, right?
Oh yeah.
So
same. Relatable. You're just talking about my brain out loud right now.
Right? So I've been literally the last 2 weeks, I've been meeting with people to help me. And I'm like, listen, I have one-on-one coaching. I have group coaching. I have a program. I have courses. I have a membership. Literally, this is how my brain does the things. And then before I realize it, it is hard to keep up with everything. It's hard to keep up with the podcast and separately create content for social media and do a newsletter and, worry about bringing clients in. And it's a lot for one person to do. And so that is, I think, how I continue to get there, wanting to do so much at once.
Yeah. And
without help.
Without help. And so that's a big thing for me, because you just described how my brain worked and how my business has worked. And the reason why I asked for that, because I'm not a perfectionist either. I will do things half-ass and they'll be extremely successful, right? So that's not my thing. But I would put so much on my own personal plate, and I would get to this overwhelmed state, and you would get to the space of not being sustainable. Right. So then it's like, I can't sustain this. So for me, every time I got to a higher level of growth and momentum and success, that's when I derailed personally. That's when I pulled myself back, because I'm like, I can't sustain this. I have all these different things that are working. It's not even that they weren't working. They were working well, and I can't do this on my own. And I had a thing very similar to you with my creativity, like, oh, I'm so creative. Who else could do this with me? Or who else could do the work that I do? Or I'm not even organized enough to put it down on paper to assign something. That was the story I told myself about hiring. And so I know that you're moving into that position. You were interviewing people. What was that like for you? Because there's also a higher level of trust and vulnerability you have to have with yourself to be able to say, I'm ready to to hire, or I'm ready to stop letting overwhelm derail my business. So what was that conversation like with yourself?
Yep. And so again, I had to recognize what my goal is, right? I do not want to give up on this business. At least not yet. I don't feel like I have given it everything that I had. I've given it a lot. I spent a lot of money. I have wasted a lot of money on people that say they could help and they couldn't. So it's like you get tired. But I have these moments, like I was supposed to be taking a break from August to December, and that just didn't happen. I took a break from August until maybe October-ish. But then I get this spark again, like, okay, I'm going to do this because I don't want to let this die. And so for me, this time this is probably my last. I won't say my last, but I'm giving it everything this time. If it doesn't work this time, then I really need to start reconsidering things. And because I recognize that I don't even get to the point that you get where things are working successfully, I get burnt out in the building. Yeah. Because I am trying to build so many things at once. That is where I get burnt out. And I am to the point where I'm tired and I recognize that I cannot do this anymore. I know that I am sitting on a gold mine. I know that, again, it is me probably that is the reason that I am not further along in my business in my business. And so for me, it was almost like I'm desperate to make this work. I am willing to put the resources behind it to really give it a fair shake. I feel like I'm finally in a space where I have help with my parents, or I'm finally in a space where I have the capacity to focus on the business and to give it a good faith effort. I just know that I can't do it myself, and I'm tired. And it's I think for me right now, it's kind of a desperation thing. I really want this to work, but I really can't do it by myself.
Yeah, I just did a video on this, and I have a question to ask you too, but I just did a video on this about why I hired, because I just recently hired because of I've hired over time, but I really got multiple people in my business just about last 6 months. But the question I had to ask myself was, does it cost me more money to not have somebody working with me or for me than it does for me to try to do it myself? And I got to the point where that answer was yes. It cost me so much more money to not have somebody working for me. And so I think that's such a valuable question. So what is going to be different? Like, so now I think this is such a sticking point for people that they get to in their business. They know their value. They know what they have to offer. They know their skill. They have all of those things there, and they have the business created in lots of different avenues, lots of different things that, throwing the spaghetti at the wall, basically, of how is it going to work? So this is going to relate to so many people. So what are you doing differently this time? Like, this is your moment. This is the time for you to really build that momentum and then not stop. Yep. So what is different this time? And I want you to answer in a way that's like, what's different about you this time?
The first thing that came to mind is I am interested in a different quality of life. I am interested, before I was willing to grind it out. I was willing to wake up, sit at a computer for 14, 15 hours a day, go to bed, wake up and do it all again. I was willing to do that before, right? This is what it's going to take. I'm good. I can do it. I just got to grind it out for a few years and then I'll be okay. I'm not willing to do that anymore, right? I, shut down the business for the rest of the year last week. And just the peace that I have had just in this last week, it's only been a week, and not having to focus on, okay, work and do this. Okay, what else do I need to do? Oh, I need to get the podcast edited. I need to get the newsletter out. I need to get the blog up. Not having to do all of that mental circus. It has just been so relaxing. It's been such a relief. And I'm like, I need this more often. Right. I am always the first person neglected when I have a lot on my plate. Right. So now I'm not eating. I'm not drinking enough water. I don't go outside for days at a time. Right. It's already just me and the dog in the house. Like, go outside, girl. Right. And it's always been, well, I can't because I need to do this. I can't because I got to do this. And everything is an emergency, if you ask me. But I would say the first thing is I am interested in a different quality of life. I don't want to work from sun up to sundown. I think the other thing is that I am being honest with myself about, at this point, I am the reason holding my business bag. me trying to do everything is hurting me. Like you said, is it hurting you more? Is it going to cost you more to do it? At this point, it's hurting me more because I am not doing anything well. Can I do these things? Absolutely. But because it's so much, I'm not doing any one thing well enough to benefit me at this point, at this moment. And at this point, I'm working backwards. And so I think those are the two things for me, plus combined with the desperation of, I really want this to work. I'm going to give it, a good faith effort. Not that I wasn't trying before, but with everything that I have learned and over the last 4 years, like I feel like I really have, clear direction. I have cleared, like I haven't had this before. So whereas before, like I said, throwing stuff at the wall, I have a better plan this time.
Yeah.
So I think those are the three things: being interested in a better quality of life, recognizing that I'm the one holding my business back, and the desperation to make this work.
Yeah, I think that's all very powerful. And I think that one thing, and I can just reflect on my journey too, because I mean, the amount of amount of services I've created through, courses and memberships and all these different things. And like I said, I sold out all of my offers right out of the gate. And then it was what comes next. And then I would get bored with that one thing. And then I would want to create something else. Or I'd think, well, that worked. Let me do something else instead of just freaking repeating what worked. That was my biggest thing. I was always in this, I needed to create something different. And I was doing that for me personally. I was doing that because I was trying to prove that I could. So I was trying to prove to the external world that I was capable and successful and smart and I could build this big business. And by me trying to prove something to everyone else, I was faltering and failing inside because I was doing things for the external instead of just doing things for myself and what worked. And so once I really shifted that relationship with myself and understanding why I was operating the way I was, and I didn't need to prove myself to anyone, like that I was smart enough or capable enough. I just needed to show up capable because I already am capable. That completely changed the dynamic and the energy in my business too. The energy changed. The way that I showed up changed. The way that I showed up on camera changed. And so those honest conversations are so deep and there's so many layers to them. So even when we think, oh, well, I'm trying to prove something to somebody else, you have to even go deeper than that. But why is it? Well, because I'm reaffirming that I'm not good enough every single time, that I'm not smart enough, because that's the story I'm operating out of. And my business is operating out of a story of lack and out of a story of not being capable and out of this story of just me not being the hero of my life. And so when you change that and you operate that business from that different place, everything changes in the external world. And so I think that's such really powerful. By doing that deep reflection, you start to see that. And it's always ongoing. I even derailed myself, or I even had an old conditioned thought, and I've been out of this phase for a while. And I even had an old conditioned thought that just came up the other day. And luckily I was able to laugh about it instead of follow it and believe it and attach a feeling to it and then identify with it. And that's what derails our business. So that leads me to just a curious question. Do you feel like you've had to really detach from, because let me take a step back here, because thoughts are the things that create the emotion within us, right? Or the emotion arises, a thought comes up, a memory, a projection, and then a emotion comes up, and then we attach that emotion to the thought, and now it becomes our reality. And so have you done any work on like really separating the emotions that arise for you versus the thoughts that go through your mind?
That's a really good question. I would say yes, and it's probably something that I'm still working on, because and I was smiling when you were talking because I don't feel successful anymore, right? As an attorney, I was confident. I had it. I knew, right? That as an attorney, I felt successful. I could do it. This, I don't have that same level of feeling of accomplishment. And I've shared this with friends, and like one was like, well, that I don't think that's fair to you, even if maybe it's not tangible with the business, you have grown a lot. And I was like, oh, well, I don't think I was considering me in the equation. I think I was looking at the external, the tangible things, right? to go from being an attorney to being a coach by my standard, which who knows if that's realistic or not, probably not, right? I don't have that same level of success. And so I think that is something that I continue to work on, something that I have to recognize that you are still, it's okay, right? You're working on it, right? You're getting the help. You recognize where your weaknesses are or where your areas of growth are. That's what I like to call them, your areas of growth. And I always have to tell myself, just don't quit. Just don't stop.
Yeah.
Just
Yes.
keep going. Even if it's not okay right now, even if it's not, everything is not what you want right now, just don't stop.
Yep. That's the thing. The only difference between someone who's successful and someone who's not is that the person that's successful didn't quit. Like that's it. Like maybe they pivoted, maybe they changed something, but they just didn't quit.
Yes.
And I think that's a really valuable lesson that we have to really bring back to ourselves of, where do I keep showing up and quitting on myself, and how can I shift that so I can step into that level of success and awareness so I can continue to move forward? But it really does come down to just being this open, vulnerable space for yourself and being willing to do the reflection. And things don't work until they work. And that's what a lot of people don't recognize. It's like, we're not overnight successes. All these other successes that we look at, they were grinding, they were building, they were doing all of these things for so long before that thing took off, before they got it right. And so oftentimes we quit right before that thing gets right. And the success isn't about our external successes, like how much financially we're successful. It's about our growth and our ability to even relate to the success and not burn ourselves out and experience that. So the success is really the byproduct of our deep inner work. And so when we keep doing the deep inner work, success is just going to come our way, and it's going to come in different forms too. It's going to look differently. We're going to experience it differently. So I think that's a really powerful space in the journey that you've walked on. So I want to wrap things up here, and I want you just to share, like, if you were to give your most, because I think you said you've been on this journey for 4 years, kind of going up and down and getting your levels of success and then still doubting yourself. But if you would get to give those listening one big advice for them to not quit on themselves, because that's the thing you have not done, you have not quit, how could you encourage them to not quit on themselves?
It might be more than one thing.
That's okay.
I think my rule number one always is be honest with yourself. Whatever it is, be honest with yourself and accept that. And I think the other part of it would be, remember why you're doing this. I think if you can do those things, always be honest with yourself, remember why you're doing it, and then figure it out, right? Then the third part is the don't give up, right? Because if you're honest with yourself, you can figure out what you're doing to hinder your growth or whatever it is that you're trying to receive or, get to. If you're honest with yourself, right? As long as you continue to lie to yourself and blame other people, right? You miss your opportunity for growth, right? You got to take that accountability and recognize that, there is probably something that I am doing or I am not doing or something that I'm not good at that is stopping me from getting to this place that I want to be. And I think you have to continue to strive to get to that place, right? Why is that place important to you, right? And it may not even be the place, right? A lot of times it's the destination, right? But to be able to once you finally get there and to say, I did that, right? And you know that if you did it once, you can do it again, right? There's always going to be a hard. You got to pick your hard and stick with it. And don't be afraid to pivot.
Yeah.
It is okay to change your mind. Right. When I told my friends that I want to go back to being a lawyer, they thought I was joking. No, I'm being serious. And I'm okay with that. Right. I have to do what is best for me. Right. Paying attention to myself, paying attention to what I need, and things have changed and circumstances have changed for me. And so always being honest with you, being true to who you are, and remembering why you want whatever it is, and don't give up.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. And I would also love for you to share with everybody where they can find you and how they can connect with you.
Absolutely. So I am on all of the social media platforms, and it's just my name, Erin F. Darden, ERIN F. DARDEN. My website should be up soon. It'll be, the new one is EQ for Love. If you're listening to it before, that's up is just my name, erinfdarden.com. Shoot me a message. We can always talk about how emotional intelligence can improve your relationships. And I am here to be a resource, even if it's not how to make you a better partner, just a better person, right? Even if you need the accountability, right? Or just somebody to vent to. I've been there. I've quit. I've given up. I've done all of those things. I've changed my mind. Just don't give up. And so if you need that support, if I can be that support for you, please let me know.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here today. And thank you everyone for listening. And I'll see you all next week.
Have a good one.